Hi, my name is Jody Wainberg. I'm the Director of Artist Alliance and Cuchifritos Gallery here at Essex Market on the Lower East Side, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the virtual walkthrough of This Side or the Other, presented in collaboration with Residency Unlimited and on view through October 31st of this year. And now I'm going to turn it over to the curator of the show, Rachel Kugelberger. Thank you, Jody.
Hi, I'm Rachel Kugelberger. I'm the Director of the Residency Program and Creative Programs at Residency Unlimited. We are a nonprofit founded in 2009, and we're a residency program. We host international, national, and local residents, curators, and artists. And we customize our residencies and are focused on the production and circulation of art and ideas. This exhibition is the culmination of the 2020 NYC-based Artist Residency Program, which was founded around 2012. And it's an annual program that awards 4 to 6 artists a 3-month customized residency program with a stipend and visits with curators who are aligned with their practices on a weekly basis, amongst other forms of support, and a culminating exhibition. So for the past couple of years, our residency program has become increasingly localized, and the New York City-based program has been focusing on the voices of artists who are traditionally underrepresented in the arts. So this year, our call for entries received around 181 applications, and we were focused on artists based on the 5 boroughs from underrepresented communities, but also whose practices focus on filling in gaps in history. So the 4 artists that were selected are Carlos Rosales Silva, Elizabeth Moran, Christopher Busey, and Ziyang Wu. And each of the artists are going to speak to their practice and their works in the exhibition. And then we'll wrap up with a couple of questions for all of the artists that we have. Jody has a question in her pocket, and I do as well.
My name is Christina Busey, and I'm the current resident for Residency Unlimited. This is one of my pieces. I have 2 pieces in the show. This one is called Sinking, and the other piece is over there with the second. My practice is I look into a lot of my heritage and the issues of race, gender, and social economics, specifically in relation to my own family and the story of my own family and moral stories. During quarantine, I had a lot of really weird dreams, and I think that I channeled those dreams and that trauma, but also fascinated about the conversations that I have with my mom, specifically over the last year, about our heritage and lineage and her story of coming to this country as an immigrant into work. I've been doing this practice around finding out more about my oral story of my family in the last couple of years, and just continue to elaborate on that. This piece is a printed photograph of myself, printed on canvas, and then essentially dipped in resin, and with paint, sand, dirt, gold leaf, vines, and things that I've gotten from Jamaica embedded into the side of the piece. That's this piece, and then the other piece. This piece is a more of a work in progress installation. Essentially, it's me with encouragement from the presence of the team. They gave me the opportunity to kind of pull back, kind of show a very raw version of my process and my research. So over the course of quarantine and the last couple of months, I've done a lot of thinking about connecting back to my roots for personal healing outside just doing this work. As tough as it's been with everything going on in the world. So something as simple as meditating, looking at old family pictures, and realizing the beauty in the story of my relation to my blood relatives and the relationships we have given me some hope. So things like letters that my little brother wrote to me as a baby, or pictures of me and my mother when she was pregnant with me, kind of like also symbolize Black joy and the encouragement of like Black children having joy, especially at a time like now that everything is living in the world. So I want to show something that was living abroad and also show what college work is.
Hi everyone, this is Ziyan Wu. This is a piece I'm showing titled Where Did Macy Go?, which is an 11-episode animated video told through a series of news reports of the protagonist, Macy, his encounter with the academic life during quarantine, his search for his grandfather's farm, and the revival. And the piece was sort of like inspiring, trying to talk about a series of issues that is related to our current time, including sort of like a collapse of the old community structure, the reinvention of the new community after decollectivization, the mass politics, the connection between immunity and community, as well as Confucius obedience versus social obedience, and also the social justice under the epidemic. The work was originally posted on TikTok as a way to challenge the possibility of online exhibition, and the project is a response to this current time of volatility, complexity, as confusion. And for me, COVID, it was the first time I've seen so many thinkers that I look at on a regular basis all over the world that are talking about the same issue at the same time, from Jojo Agenda's techno-totalitarianism to Zizek's sort of like reinvention, or his notion of the reinvention of communism, or Korean-born German philosopher Han Byung-chul's notion on, for example, it was the Confucius background that how many sort of Asian countries dealt with COVID more successfully versus other thinkers claim that all these countries have been living under a sort of like a social obedience, which is like what I'm interested in, to sort of juxtapose a lot of like seemingly unrelated or even conflicting sort of like ideas, and then sort of like present them as this sort of hybrid structure. And one biggest inspiration of this piece in particular was a piece of writing titled Learning from the Virus by Spanish philosopher Paul Preciado, which in that piece, he was sort of like connecting the notion of community and immunity. Even though like before I was thinking like community as like, gender community, racial community, and so on, but has always been connected to like the idea of who is immunized. Then like who is demonized are always excluded from this community and have to do a certain kind of duty and so on. So I think that was sort of like an idea or inspiration I got, like who has the right to be immunized, who will be demonized, and so on after the COVID. So that's like one of the biggest inspiration I have. That just got casted, but that scene was also like inspired by the writing where Paul Preciado talks about Hugh Hefner as an example, who was a founder of Playboy and who was the very first example of the sort of like work from home example, that his bed is connected to like all over the place, and he can work, enjoy, and have sex, and do everything just on the bed, which is very similar to maybe a very near future when all these major companies have declared of work from home forever. So what we're facing after that, how surveillance and so on is playing in the very near future. And of course, you can see there are some sort of masks. These are some philosophers that I mentioned, such as Zizek, Han-Bin Cho, Preciado, that it's sort of like a lab selling situation. They're trying to sell these masks that help protect them, and with different amounts. And in the end, this protagonist Macy was found out that he was sort of revived after he was died from COVID, which sort of I was trying to raise the idea of your physical body, your virtual body, especially we're living in between the spaces. Where did this protagonist go? And I think that's what the ultimate question I wanted to raise up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carlos Rosales Silva. This is my work here behind me. These 3 paintings and the sculpture and the zine. I come from El Paso, Texas, which is on the border of New Mexico, Texas, Mexico, and the lands of the Tiwa indigenous people. And so that is really kind of the foundation for my work. There are a confluence of so many cultures, not only social and political cultures, but visual cultures. So much of my work is kind of excavating what my foundation is for making an image. And this had to be kind of reverse engineered from the typical kind of canonical Western understanding of art history. So for me, I learned how to make an image by watching my uncles and aunts and grandparents and elders and parents who were builders, sign painters, party planners, musicians, and so much of that is kind of hardwired into the way I think about color, texture, be it through balloon colors in a quinceañera or murals on the sides of walls and businesses that sometimes are functional in advertisements and sometimes are memorializing something like a person who has passed away or violence that has been enacted by the police. So there's all of this kind of visual history that is wrapped up in these pieces that gets kind of translated into colors and shapes and trying to think about a different way of maybe seeing something. And so a lot of the time in my studio is spent taking drawings from studies of life and translating them into collage and into abstract drawings, and then taking those and translating them into compositions in paint, or in these paintings in stone or in acrylic plastic, and all of those have relationships to where I'm from or how I learned how to make pictures, basically.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Moran, and I'm one of the 4 RU NYC residency artists, and we were together through quarantine, as probably the other 3 have already said. And for the last almost 4 years, I've been researching the history of fact-checking as a profession, and I was interested in, at the beginning of this quote, post-fact era, as Kelly and Conway said, I was interested in if this was an era of facts that we were leaving, well, then when did the era of facts begin? And so this is a project that's taken many lines of inquiry, but specifically what I have here for this installation is just before quarantine, I was given access to the New York Public Library's Rose Reading Room, where I was able to record within the space where the first professional fact checkers did their research and their work, and where they invented the fact-checking processes used by reputable news organizations till this day. The Rose Reading Room is this beautiful Beaux Arts building that's over a century old. The ceiling is this grandiose fixed moment of a sunrise or a sunset, and I was under this kind of fake sky that these women did their work. And so when I shot in there just before quarantine, I animated this mural, the sky, by moving the camera. And I sat on this footage all throughout quarantine. And then during quarantine, when I was passing the time and kind of escaping the reality of the pandemic by staring out the window, I then realized that was kind of an echoing of this work where my feeling of looking out the window to some sort of alternative reality that was both real but an escape from the truth was similar to perhaps these women looking up towards the ceiling and maybe a moment of respite of doing all their research, looking towards this kind of sense of enlightenment that in itself was never real.
Okay, well, welcome to our mini roundtable. Since we're all together, I'd like to just point out the artists, Christopher, Elizabeth Moran.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. We're alive.
Technology. Carlos Rosales Silva, and I'm Rachel Gilbert. And I have a question for you that probably will be boring at some point in 2020, but I'm going to go for it. So I consider you all to be artists, historians, like artists who work very much about history, who are telling histories through their work. And as was part of the kind of requirement for the call for entries, we were interested in artists who are, if you will, participating in a kind of sort of revisionism, right? Like filling in these gaps in history. And ranging from indigenous communication systems to contemporary technologies. So given how complex our current moment is, the fact that we really are living through an historic moment, and how loaded and messy it is, I was wondering if you feel that your work has conceptually or formally adjusted in any way, or shifted or changed in any way. If so, how? And if so, is it something that is evident in the work of the exhibition? Long-winded question, but do you mind if I start with you?
That's a person. I mean, I wouldn't say much shifted drastically, but I will say that I had an existential crisis of like, what am I doing? I'm not curating a vaccine. I'm a loser. Martin's from a loser. What the hell is wrong with me? In the midst of that, when I came down that hill, I realized that like it still works. So I have to take time with myself and learn to like stop. But work I'm doing is not just kind of like I want to find out more about who I am, and my family, and my world. It was like a way to center myself. And also find my place in the world, even within communities or things I can control, like my family life or just people I love. And also, I also learned to kind of like relax. Like the piece that's in the corner is very casual, but I think that it kind of gave me, through everyone's encouragement, gave me kind of space to also appreciate the things I was doing that weren't as aggressively hands-on. So kind of like the work I was doing in programming or communities or research was indeed artwork as well. So I think that the residency informed my the work that I'm doing, gave me more perspective, but it didn't aggressively change it, just informed it. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Cool, great.
Elizabeth?
What a time, right? I feel like we need to say on camera, this is our first time meeting in person.
Yeah.
Right. This is actually something I forgot to point out at the introduction. The residency started online, and we all thought any day now we would go back into a physical space with the international cohort, and here we are almost 7 months later, many of us meeting for the first time in 3D. So it's like high school reunion of sorts. It's really
Yeah. So I guess like thinking with that as the backdrop of like aesthetic change. I mean, on the one hand, they're not just the current project, but really through like all of my projects, it's been some sort of search for like what is ever deemed a fact? What is ever deemed something that we can truly know? And the slippage of that, you know, is kind of the possibility of anything we can ever fully know, fully understand. Given our own subjectivity or given our place in time or, you know, place and all those things, and I feel like the last 7 months have just really put that in sharp relief. And so with my work, on the one hand, there was a feeling of I need to be talking about this. You know, this is exactly all the things that my work is about. But then on the other hand, I think I sort of allowed myself to not have that pressure, and that I really can just sit and observe and being quiet and observing and listening is just as important, more so, than being the one who's speaking or saying, look at this, think about that. You have to have one before you can have the other. To be in dialogue with a time with people. And so I think that this work, my work, and my contribution to the show is really committed to it in a way that I don't think I ever would have done before. And that I am still thinking about a lot of these things, but I'm sort of allowing for us to kind of sit with things and to maybe not immediately have answers because I feel like that was so much we were talking about the last few months. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but I would say that's the kind of quiet slowness of my work is
I think so. The two of you have said something similar in that regard, and I feel like that goes very hand in hand with the fact that we're looking at the extent to which capitalism is demanding production, and that we're at this moment of crisis. And it seems like even when it comes to artistic production, there's allowances there to not produce in the way that we're accustomed to. So we're also slowing down production there as well.
That's right.
I think to follow, I guess one very big change is urgency. I guess like my work has always been like, I just have a very like big tendency to work on things that are urgent and trendy. Like I guess, I don't know, like seeing, I guess a lot of people are opposed to it, but the opposite, I really like when it's trendy and then I look at it because it's always that attraction of, I mean, something is trendy, that must mean like something is urgent in some way, that is more related to the time. So I feel like COVID makes me even wanting more, not to be trendy, but focusing on things that is more urgent, that I can make some quick decisions and effects to generate some different results, that I cannot just sit as a video artist to make videos to challenge some sort of like very privileged, I guess we can still do, but that's one of the biggest change for me at least, is that change to deal with more urgent stuff that can have quick, clear changes. And the other one is collective effort for me. I started doing way more collaboration than before. Started making video game with another video game team, and then doing collaboration together with other technologists, and which I've been doing a little bit, but it hasn't been this bigger level and this sort of engagement, which I thought is something that is actually similar to the first point, which is like I need this change in order to have bigger impact, because I just don't feel that was enough for me of what I did prior to that. So I think that's a biggest change.
Yeah, it's something that we read, which I actually saw in your video, a remnant of that really. It's like the community. It was something that I really, something that was a real focus for me in the middle of everything. I mean, so much of living in New York is kind of depending on your peers and your chosen family, and coming back into that they're in the midst of something that feels so dangerous and so frightening is such a important part of the last few months and has been and continues to be. And just being thankful, but also trying to reinforce that community. So, how in whatever ways we can. So, nurturing that and really important, but also kind of rethinking the way that in terms of the work, the work kind of continues, I have like a pretty abstract and pretty formal practice when it comes to making those objects, but I started thinking more about the way that my work is kind of distributed and what kind of pathways it moves through. And so during the time we really only either see things online or maybe like mail something, it became really important to kind of start mailing things to people and also like fold in information about things that were going on. So my Z-making practice really kind of came to the forefront during the time. Printing freezines and distributing them in protests or actions to free libraries and making them just like really accessible and unauthored basically. Not something like this, which is clearly authored by me, but things that are just more informational became really important. So yeah, there's some things that haven't emerged that didn't really change, and then things that stay the same. But everything kind of got folded into the practice, which is really exciting. But also continues to be kind of this practice of fostering and caring for the communities that we build and new members of communities that we're in. That seems such a simple idea that should have been so crucial and is crucial for a lot of people before, but now more than ever it's just kind of like I feel like I was talking on the phone with people for hours and hours, and I still do that, which is something I wasn't doing before. It's such a beautiful way to keep in touch with people. Just to hear someone's voice, we can't really appreciate that.
Yeah, COVID has controlled our social life so much. What I think is particularly interesting about your practice is the sense which it kind of like confirmed how radical it actually is. Also the protests that erupted during COVID, and people gathering outside again and passing things around to each other. It's like we were like living behind a screen, and then all of a sudden we were like passing information to us, to each other, to see that in the way that we're saying, but also post office and how important that to all in retrospect, yes, post office, like all of these things, and just how much changes. So I have a question on behalf of Jerry, who is the executive director of Artists Alliance, which operates for us. Since we only have 5 minutes there, that's because I'm going to read your questions here. Have the changes to our physical patterns of occupying space caused by the pandemic, resulting economic fallout and housing insecurity, influenced how or where you would like to present your work?
Yeah, we did. I was like, actually just like, did we talk about this? Thinking about the conversation we had, forgive me, we talked a lot about the desire and what the world will look like post-COVID in relation to institutions. And like us as a community of curators and artists, like putting pressure on institutions to not come out on the end of this kind of like taking advantage of communities, but actually supporting communities. And the reality of that versus like what we can do to get something from them in terms of support, real support. So I think that I don't know, personally, I'm on the board of a really great gallery that is doing great work, and I think that it gives me some hope. And I'm on the board of a lot of conversations of what institutions are not doing, and it makes me more worried. They don't have too much hope in what institutions will actually institute when this one is over outside of a black square or like a temporary grant for artists during COVID. But I do think that the continued pressure is important in general for most things that are political, social political. So I don't know. I think personally, it makes me more wary. It makes me to pay attention to people who come to my life in terms of my practice that have best intentions and state those intentions and where they stand politically, economics and social economics from the get-go. I don't know how much that will waver into like brand showing in a year or 2 years, but definitely top of mind now.
Yeah, I feel like you can quote multiple times in some other question of like where would you want to show your work, because everything's, there's never a perfect space, there's always, it's like maybe the institution's good, but the person you're working with is not, or vice versa, and so to me, it takes us back to the conversation we had. They're flying now, but at one point, we were talking together, where we were talking about, where I was saying, it's funny because I made a video, where I was like, I don't want any more video, I want like real objects, I want performance, I want things that are ephemeral, and I want things that are, experiential, and that which I think the community that we're talking about, that we experience together, to experience art together is what I've missed so much, and what is really wonderful is to be this conversation with each other is when they all have an experience. So I guess that's what I would be interested in. Is I'm interested in having moments where my work can be more of an experience as opposed to an object. And I don't say that to say there's something wrong with objects. Like I think objects too, but I think just having all been in our boxes for so long, that I'm craving something that feels collaborative, perhaps, or something greater than just taking an Instagram shot, saw the show, goodbye. When there really is some sort of connection in some way. And again, I'm not sure if I've answered the question, but that's where my mind goes.
I think that totally makes sense. I was telling everyone that, from it's the experience, like the scale of the words and the experience of seeing the projection that is like so different from when I saw the post on Instagram, and when you share that the first draft of that footage with us very early on, and it's like, and if I see this, like we need the actual experience, we need the time, we need a dark day, evenings to experience that. And then there's inside, there's outside, so I feel like it totally makes perfect sense, and it changed the whole everything. So I'm totally down for that. Like especially like seeing everyone's work today, I was like, oh, that's a scale, oh, that's a material, that's So totally miss that so much. And I think personally, the other part that already got changed, even in this one, that it was the first time I premiered my work on social media. I've never done that before. It feels a lot of like insecurity, and I'm like, oh, after I do that, will I still even be able to sell it? I'm sure it won't be, but it's sort of like the idea of that insecurity. I'm not sure, but. I think it was totally because of that. Like, if I'm a digital artist or internet artist, I need to use internet even better than I did before. Before I make a video and show in a gallery or institution, but now I'm gonna try to just like accessibility is everything. Like especially right now. So post on social media, and then I'm making a web game. Like initially our idea was to make. The collaboration was to make like an actual video game that you can download. But download takes, it's different than you give them a website link that they can play, right? So I feel like it's all about accessibility, and I wanted to be able to provide that. So I think for this piece, I also made a Instagram face filter that you can play with, and I was like, oh yeah, I can make a more advanced AR experience that, but in the end, you still have to download. Whereas, if it's on Instagram, everyone have access to it. So I feel that somehow that's a huge difference that I think I would like to, and I'm doing to change the way I show my work. I think accessibility.
went to an art show in Prospect Park where all the art was tied to the trees, like string or ratchet straps, and that was so great and fun. It was right next to like a barbecue that was playing cumbia music, and there's like kids running through the show, and there's like dogs, and it was a beautiful day. And I was trying to plan like a show at Reese Beach actually, where all the art would just be in the sand and we're on the beach. I mean, so many beautiful ideas happened and are happening right now that I think honestly are gonna have to sustain us in the years coming. I mean, if anything, like we're gonna be depending on each other more than ever. I think a lot of these, unfortunately, I mean, spaces have already closed. Spaces that I love that I've shown them are closing or on the precipice of closing, and like it's going to be a different landscape. We're going to have to figure something out. Yeah, budgets are going to be radically different. So to kind of like reimagine where our work is shown is kind of just honestly the first step in what is going to have to happen. But I also think, who accesses our work, if that has to change, like all of those things that we're already kind of thinking about. How it's accessed.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? The exit market will be closing in about 20 minutes. Please make your final selection at this time. We'll be closing tomorrow at 8 a.m. Thank you.
But yeah, I think that's going to only accelerate in the next few years. And honestly, like part of me is excited. Part of me is terrified, part of me is wondering how I'm going to afford all of this. My lifestyle and what I think all of this would do. But that is a real kind of like intense feeling as an artist right now. Like how do we play out? Even just day to day, we were talking about this outside. It's just kind of like, how do I go to the studio today? Yeah. Well, what is this? What is this thing? Like, what does it mean anymore, right? But then there's other moments where it's like, this is the only thing that has me right now. It's the only thing that can kind of carry me through the day. So.
No, I definitely think that, again, what we're living through is something that, when we read about this moment in years to come, how has all of this actually shaped the trajectory of art history? I'm very, very curious to see how that is analyzed or considered, because we will all have lived through it. We'll all have our own respective experiences, and we'll be able to basically, through witnessing this whole moment, as people in the arts and the culture sector, we'll really be able to kind of criticize the histories that are being written if they're not accurate. We'll be like, wait, I've lived through that moment, and yeah, I'm very curious.
It's very weird. It's like to elaborate on what you guys are saying. It's like it's exciting in a lot of ways. It's like it like brings a real openness of access to art. It's art. It's a big out there. Don't touch it. Only rich people go there.
And even the continuation of what that world is right now. Like, that don't even works. Like, now sometimes you have to make an appointment to go to the space. But it's just like, shut. Like, I'm not making an appointment.
It's bizarre because on the flip side, I know some Irish friends who have so much success and they're receiving like no support from these institutions. So we've all been down that neck for years.
It's true.
And there's like no support. There's no support. There's no like, let me fill this grant application for you. Like, what do you need? Like, they're just like, well,
give us free work.
Give us free work. Or let's be messy and buy posters and make a show about it. It's just and so it's exciting to make work accessible, like make it, and rely on each other as a community. But it's also like, unfortunately, these institutions have like helped us in all ways grow or like build a career. So like, on each other to kind of like have each other's backs. So it's hard. It's hard. Like, artists are freelancers are unemployed.
Like, for the most part, that $30 we keep passing around.
It's
so far.
It's hard. Yeah, it's scary.
And a few organizations are actually doing more like engaged work or some engaged work have folded because they're not able to do their work. can't do that type of work under these circumstances. And also, of course, there's no funding right now. Well, thank you.